Perfect. I think you have to accept to stay here. I also prepared some slides, so just to help us keep up the pace. We have 1 hour more or less, so I will try to go fast. Towards the end, we have Q&A sessions. I also like to keep the webinar interactive, so if you have questions, put them in the chat box, or even better, unmute yourself and ask the question directly. So let's get started. Before we start, a few more words about the BD School. So as Darren mentioned, we are a platform for business development. When we created it, I created it for the same reason that Darren was mentioning before. So I was working in BD for a very long time. And at some point I wasn't able to have the results I had before anymore. And when I started looking around for education, I was really disappointed because there wasn't really a way to learn it in a structured way and so on. So I had this idea to create a platform where we could help the next generation of business developers and founders using the power of knowledge. And why the knowledge and information? Because I really believe that when people have the right information and the right knowledge, they can really build great stuff that are successful and that have a huge impact on the world. Our approach is really the one of personalizing the learning experience for our users, and really adapting the approach to your ambitions, to your goals, to your skills, and so on. And of course, our goal is to help you become better at business development and grow your startup. So when we talked with Maria and Darren preparing this session, so she mentioned, of course, well, there are a lot of startups in our incubator that they have a product that's great, they worked really hard with really brilliant solutions, but then it's time, of course, to go to market and start finding some clients. So the purpose of this session is really so it's like multiple, because we want on one end give you like some motivation and inspiration to keep pushing, also give you some perspective on how you can build your customer acquisition strategy, and then towards the end there will be also some quick exercises and some things you can do just to test what we've been talking about. But before we start, I wanted to show you a quick video. You let me know if you can hear. Wait a second. Oh, I think you couldn't hear properly, but the sound was really shaky. Also, the reason why it was shaky is that this movie is from 1989, and there is this voice that says, "If you build it, they will come." Now, this movie is called Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner, and basically there's this guy that hears these voices that tells you, if you build it, they will come. And this referring to a diamond, so a pitch, like for baseball. And it's like, yeah, if you build it, they will come. And it was referring to like all the people that would come to watch the matches. Now, this thing of if you build it, like just build it and they will come, it was something that was really common, in the startup world at some point, which was like, as long as the product is good, and solves the need, like you just do it and then people will come. Now, I don't necessarily, Okay, I don't necessarily believe in this approach, because I actually believe that it's a little bit of bull crap, In what sense? In the sense that, of course, it's great to have great products. And I mean, all of us here, if we work with startups or in the startup ecosystem, obviously we need to produce something valuable, right? And ideally, this something valuable is recognized as valuable for everyone, and indeed they will come. But of course, let's be honest, nowadays there is a solution pretty much for everything. So even if we're the best and we think we're the most brilliant, at the beginning, we're still going to struggle. So it's not as simple as creating a product and people will come. But of course, there is a lot of work we need to do to make sure that people will indeed come. So this thing of the build it and they will come, it's not necessarily my taste. And why primarily is this conviction is because, just as Seth Godin says, like, people don't really buy goods or services, but they buy relations, stories, and magic. So when people come to you, and whatever problem or wish they have, they come to you and they buy from you, not necessarily because of your products or service, because again, there is probably other 10 competitors, even if you don't think so, but there are. But people choose to work with a specific company because they get something more than the product or the service. They get the experience, they get the personal attention, they get excited because they love the brand so much and they want to be associated to you. So first thing, before we even start, so this is the mantra, you should keep in mind from now on. When people come to you, they're not coming to you necessarily for the service. Of course, they have a need that they have to fix or a wish that they want to solve, but they choose you because of your story, because of how good you are at getting them excited. And remember this thing of the getting excited, because we're going to go after to this point. Now, this part is going to be quick, and I consider them prerequisites when you build a startup or company. So even before you think of going to market, these things should be there. I think we're all great entrepreneurs here, so I am taking the risk of assuming that all these things, you did them already. So what are these prerequisites? First, having an understanding of business development. So what is really business development? Business development is not only finding clients or sales. Business development is about thinking of tasks, processes, or activities that we can put in place to implement growth opportunities in a sustainable and profitable way. And we need to go one level deeper with this, which is understanding why we do business development. Why we do business development? Because we want to create long-term value for our company, right? So of course, for entrepreneurs, like I think all of us here, even serial entrepreneurs, they always start a new venture with the idea of like having it there in the future, having an impact, a long-lasting impact on society, right? So why we do business development? Because we want to create this long-term value that comes obviously from customers. That's what we're going to talk about today, but it can come from other things, markets, for example, and relationships. Throughout the session, I will give you some examples of how we at the BD School did that, and some other examples of my past careers. Then other prerequisites. So before you can go to market, you need to have these things done. Again, I'm assuming if you have a product, from the moment you put something out there, you should have done these things, which are first, define your identity. So really being clear with your vision, your mission, why are you doing that? What are your values? And then of course, you had done already market research, competitor analysis, customer research, and you built your first value propositions that you're ideally testing already. If you didn't do these things, I do suggest you to go back and do them before you go in front of your customers, for one simple reason, is that all these elements are going to help you build a solid strategy, which is not just, okay, let's try to send messages to people, but you can really put like a consistent plan in place that makes sense to you, to your business, for now, for the future, but it makes sense also for your customers. At the end of the session, so if there are some topics that you didn't touch yet, or things that you didn't do, please put them in the chat, because after I will also give, like, to Maria, of course, the slides, and I will include one slide with resources that you can read on all these topics. So just put everything below in the chat. The other prerequisite, which is extremely important, is to having clear expectations with the business development, but I would say in general with the startup life as well. And I would like to have also the opinion of Darren in a minute. But yeah, first thing is business development is a long-term investment. So the moment you start working on growing your business and going to market, you need to take that into account. It takes a long time. So there is really no point in being impatient with that or rushing things, because it's going to go is going to backfire. So that's as simple as that. So you really need to enter in a mindset that you're there for the long term. You're not going to get results immediately. That is, there is a lot of trial and error that you need to put. You're going to fail a lot. which is bad, it's going to make you feel really bad and frustrated, but it's just part of the game. And the other thing is that at some point you're going to want to quit. That's just like physiological. There will be a moment in which you wake up at 3 a.m. and you say, that's it, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm going to find a job. And then you even go on LinkedIn and you look for a job, and then you say, yeah, no, after all, it's worth it. So I want to keep doing that. Darren, how is free? Because of course you built multiple companies. So yeah, would you recognize yourself in that?
A little bit, but I get used to the failures. So I built, I've actually made my habit of going through this phase. So I've always been involved in companies at exactly this stage where you fail a lot. And I kind of turned it into what I enjoy doing. So yeah, just enjoy the process.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Do you have maybe some tips to win the fear of failure? Because I know that personally pretty blocked me a bit, especially like at the very early stage. It was really tough. So you've been there multiple times. Do you have some tips for that maybe?
Well, to get over the initial fear, I think anything, if someone wants to change or wants to do something, the incentive has to be big enough, of course. So you need to know why you're doing it. And if you don't remember why you're doing it anymore, you'll probably won't do it. But then if you imagine this why you have, the second step is actually not very glamorous. It's just like presenting. Like you're presenting right now. I'm sure everybody here has presented at some point. Everybody probably was really nervous when they presented for the first time. And that's the same thing with doing business development, building relations, trying out new things. You get used to it. So for me personally, the best way to get over that fear is doing it more.
True. Yeah, totally. I have the same. And we also have one rule with the team, which is we should always like try to go a bit out of the comfort zone. So we regularly do things that we're not really used to, just to practice basically being rejected. So that doesn't feel good. But then indeed you get used to that. So perfect. So these were all the prerequisites. So you need to have all these things in place, and you need to have this specific mindset, because then this, of course, is going to help you out go through the hard times of being in a startup. Now, let's go to the focus of it and how to get clients. So, of course, I don't know all of you, so I don't know precisely on what you're working on. It would be great to connect later so we can be even more specific. I try to make to go a bit like from the very generic and like more high level strategy to what we can actually do. And the first thing I want to talk about is the customer journey, because I think it's really an important tool to understand, like, okay, how are we gonna get these clients? What does it mean to get a client to buy from us? So when we're thinking about, selling to customers, and getting our first revenue, we really need to have a complete understanding on how people are gonna find our product or service, right? So what is it that people are looking for when they come to us? And the customer journey really helps us visually, imagine this person, that goes through, let's say, a street and, starts wandering, and then, starts feeling some pain around their product. So around the specific problem. For example, with what's the name of the bike company? Wheelkeeper? No, Will.
Yeah, we'll keep.
Wilkin, nice, perfect. So let's say there is I just arrived to the Netherlands. I buy a bike because everybody has a bike, and then after 10 days, I got my bike gets stolen, and then I buy another bike, and then my other bike also gets stolen. Well, I start feeling a little bit of a anxiety, around buying a bike. It's like I don't want to get my bike stolen again. So what can I do? The moment in which the person, gets like to this point of like, oh, come on, not again, like I need to find the solution. This is the moment in the customer journey, which is the awareness stage, right? So in the awareness stage, you have to think about this person that, gets the bike stolen. It's like, that's it. I'm not going to get my bike stolen anymore. I want to do something about it. So they start, typing online. Now, what are they going to find when they go online? So we want them to find Will Keep, right? Because we want to make sure that that these people can, of course, keep their bike, so nobody gets stolen. But of course, we want to grow our company. So first stage in the important stage in the customer journey is the awareness stage, in which the person realizes, okay, I have a problem. I need to find the solution. because the people that are finding solutions nowadays mainly go online, or maybe they ask their partners, they ask their friends and so on, we need to take into account these nuances, right? So we need to take into account, we need to think like our customers and say, okay, when they have a problem related to my product, what's going to happen? What do they do? This is something you have to figure out. After that, when the person becomes aware of their problem, you want to be their solution, right? So you want to make sure that they buy from you. So how do you do that? Well, you do them by moving this person to the next stage, which is the education stage. In the education stage, what you're doing basically as a company is to educate the person about your solution, right? So you want to tell them what you do with your company, how your company or how your product can help them not get their bike stolen, how you can, relate to them, and how other people used your device to save their bikes and so on. So basically, in the education stage, you want the person to feel like, oh, this company seems legit, seems like I could kind of trust them, that's great. So, okay, tell me more. And then, of course, at that point, your goal is to move the person throughout the customer journey and make sure that they select you indeed. Now, and then, of course, the last stage is the onboarding, in which, well, they selected you. So you want to delight your customers with an amazing experience. This stage often is overlooked in the business development process because it's something that happens after, you got the client, right? However, especially because you're entrepreneurs and you have your company, do not overlook this stage, because this is the moment in which you can, get the customer, transform the customer into a brand ambassador, someone that loves you so much that is going to talk about you with everyone. That is the cheapest way to acquire customers, because you don't have to put all this effort in building trust anymore, because your customers are going to do it for you. So first thing you have to do, when you think about this, of course, you did your customer research. So when you think about your ideal customer profile or your buyer persona, you really have to imagine this little person that goes through these stages. And then you need to think about like ways in which you can help the person to move forward and to decide to work with you. So first, important to the customer journey. Now, of course, again, we said it before, like, especially if we're new, nobody's gonna ever care about us. Like, I remember the first days of the BD school, I was like, obviously super excited and super proud of what we were building, and then I would send messages to people. Most of the times, they would not even reply to me. Half of the people I would send connections to, not even accepted. And then my LinkedIn would be a mess of like sent requests that nobody ever saw. Or sometimes it would even be the case in which, I don't know, I would be contacting some companies, and, they would be like, but who are you? Like, nobody cares. Literally, nobody cares. And that's okay. I'll tell you more. So at the very beginning, because, well, as entrepreneurs, I think you can relate to, but we tend to be a little bit egocentric, right? So, I mean, after all, we're here, like we have to put our face on it. And maybe at the beginning we're a bit shy, but then we like it, right? So otherwise we wouldn't start the company. Like, it requires a lot of, being in front of people, let's put it this way. So at the beginning, it was really hurtful, when people would just not care. It's like, but look, I did it for you, like, why don't you like this thing? And then I realized one important thing, which is people don't care because there is so much out there, and there is so much like coming up all the time, that to trust you, you need to be there long enough, and you need to show up long enough for them to say, okay, I think you're serious about your business, so maybe we can give you a chance. Now, I don't necessarily agree with this that much, because I think, especially when you're a young entrepreneur, you do need also, people that are excited about you. You need to be given a chance. But realistically speaking, it's business, so nobody is going to care about you. So what you need to do, and that's really the first thing that you need to focus on, like, even before, you start thinking, I'm going to sell, I'm going to get clients, there is a step before that you need to take, which is you need to build trust. And how can you build trust? Of course, the good thing is that you can, not manipulate, but you can, how to say, control the way people perceive you, right? And nowadays it's made extremely easy because everything happens online. So literally you can write a few articles about how cool you are and people are going to be able to find it. But of course there is a catch, because it's not only about, you know, putting information out there about you, but it needs to be done in a way that inspires trust to people, right? So when people come to your company or to your profile, they need to see, okay, this person, like, I'm going to observe because still I don't trust this person. I just met this person, but it seems legit, you know, seems genuine, seems honest, you know, like I wouldn't mind maybe in the future doing business with this person. So even before you go to market and you start selling your product, you really need to focus on building trust. We created this mini framework, which is BAM framework: be genuine, acquire credibility, make people excited. Now, what does it mean being genuine? So being genuine really starts by being self-aware, right? So, and that's, keep in mind, as a startup founder, as a CEO or owner, however you want to call yourselves, like, you are and you're going to be the face for the company for a long time, until, you know, the company is self-sustained and you're not needed anymore. But at the beginning, everything you're going to do, everything, you know, you're going to put out there, people are going to associate it with your company, right? So it's important that you know, you're mindful of that. To be genuine, the first thing you need to do is really to think about your values, about the way you want people to perceive you, and what it is really your main reason for doing what you're doing, right? I know, for example, that I started the BD school because I was just too frustrated by having to find like all this sea of information, and I was not able to do my job anyway, you know, after wasting hours. I was like, it is not efficient. It doesn't make sense, you know, so we need to do something. And I try to do it really like from, you know, we're really focused on people experience, real life experience of other business developers. So for us, it was really important to, you know, transmit this element of, you know, like really a platform that came from the bottom, really peer-to-peer and so on. But you need to be clear with yourself. You need to be really self-aware, because from the moment you're self-aware, then you're able to be genuine, and people love to do business with genuine people. And even if they don't do business with you, they're still going to respect you enough because you're yourself, right? You're not like putting out information and so on. This is going to help you get credibility. And to get credibility, there are a lot of things you can do. For example, you can share information online. You can be active on social media. You can get interviews. You can go to events and so on. So, but the important thing is that people, when they look for you somewhere, they can find you, and they can find, you know, someone that is legit and so on. And then the last point, the last element of the BAM framework is make people excited. Really, the first job of any business developers is to get people excited about what you're doing. How do you do that? Well, we're going to see that later, but it's really about putting the customer first. Whenever you do that, and I know this sounds really cliche, but it's also like less easy than what it seems. But your job is to make people excited. When people are excited about what they're doing, they cheer for you, and you know, they see the value that you provide as a person, as a company. They want to be associated with you. They're going to talk about you because they see that you provide value. So before you even start, focus on building this trust. So again, be active and so on. The second step, of course, before we go, an idea of an exercise for you. This we do it with all our students, and we also do it with our team at the BD school. So an exercise we do is really this, let's call it like self-awareness exercise. What you can do, so if you want, of course, take note of it, but you can get the recording later. So what you should do is like write down on a paper, why did you start this company? So why do you do what you do? And what are 3 of the most important values for you? So really values that you cannot imagine yourself to live without, which can be anything. Most of the times people mention honesty, that's good, but just write them down. And then the last question you need to ask yourself is, how do I want people to perceive me? So if, for example, they find me on LinkedIn, I mentioned LinkedIn because many, well, if you're a founder of any company, you should be on LinkedIn. Then we're going to talk about other channels later. Why you need to be clear on these elements, you know, like who you are, what are your values, and what you want people to remember about you. Because when people are going to look for you and they're going to go on your LinkedIn profile, you want to give them a very good impression, right? So in business, like impression is very important. So you need to be mindful on that, and you need to curate your image, your personal brand, let's call it. So one way to do that is to optimize your about section on LinkedIn. How you can update it? You can update it with the answers that you find to the questions that we asked ourselves before, right? The values and so on. What is the point of doing this? The point is that when the person is going to read your about section, it's not going to be just a boring section like, oh, experienced business development professional with the proven track record of building businesses and so on. Like, it's boring. While you want them to perceive, to feel the passion that fuels you to have your company. Like, why do you have this company? Why you can be the right person to help me with that, you know? So start from your value and then update your about section on LinkedIn. If it's already updated and it works, don't change it. It's also the other thing. Whatever works, don't change it. Scale it in case, but don't change it. So this can be a nice exercise for you to start building this trust. Now, second step, you need to find your audience, right? So obviously, so now great, we build this credibility when people go on our website, or, you know, it's consistent, they go on LinkedIn, they find us, we're the founder of this great company and we're so passionate about it. Now we need to make sure that we put whatever it is, our product or service, in front of our audience, right? Because yeah, otherwise it's a bit useless. We cannot keep it for ourselves. Now, how do we find our audience? So first place to go to is your customer research. And that's why it's so important to do it at the very beginning. You go to your customer research, because in your customer research, if you did it, you know, like mindfully and very in detail, you're going to find a lot of information on how to find your customers, because they told you, right? Let's say you run a customer survey, or you did customer calls. Hopefully you did when you were building your products and so on. Questions that you can ask are also like, where do you find information about this topic? And maybe they tell you, oh yeah, I'm always on LinkedIn. I spend my day on LinkedIn because I work on, you know, I'm a business developer and I work B2B. So I'm always on LinkedIn. Great. But maybe you have other people that are not on LinkedIn, because that's also the thing. Like nowadays, everybody is on LinkedIn, but there's so many other channels, right? So if you ask to your customers, they're going to tell you where you have to be. You know, that's as simple as that. That's why before I said, have these things in place, because it's going to make your life so much easier. Like for us, like I'm very proud of one thing that we did at the BD school. So from the very beginning, like everything we built was always in co-creation with our audience, even the webinars. So we do monthly webinars, and well, Sam is a witness because he's in our community. We ask them like, what do you want to learn? You know, what are you struggling with? What would you like to have some extra knowledge, you know? And then your customers tell you, and that's beautiful, because then you're not just a company providing a service, but you're creating together with them. So you provide them with exactly what they need and what they want, and in return, they're going to give you their trust in form of money, right? So they're going to pay for your services because they trust you, because there is this synergy between the two of you. So customer research, first place where to find information on how to find your customers. Then another cool hack is use your competitors. I mean, if your competitors are targeting exactly the same type of audience, when you run the competitor analysis, one element of the competitor analysis, of course, where are they active? What's their marketing strategy? Where are they present? Maybe you're going to find that they are, for example, in all the major conferences related to your service. Like we run this regularly at the BD school. So we try to, you know, we consider like everyone, even if it's not direct competitor, but they have one teeny tiny part which is similar to ours. We want to know what they're doing, because having information about how they do things and how they find their clients, of course, gives us very easy hints on how we could find potentially our audience as well. In our case, for example, most of our competitors are active on LinkedIn, of course, because they work B2B. But many of them, for example, use like they have specific referrals, like websites that talk about them, right? Generating traffic for their websites. And guess what we did? We just made a list of all these websites and we reach out to them as well, saying, hey, can you talk about us too? So your competitor is a great source of creativity to think, okay, how do we put our product in front of our customers? Then, especially if you're at the very beginning, and you have a small team, let's say you're even a solo founder, or maybe you have another founder, but you're like one or two, it is really pointless to open 10,000 channels and like having the expectations of being good at them. What you should do is really to find that one channel where the majority of your audience is. Why is that? It really offers a lot of benefits. So first is you have like a larger amount of people that you can connect with. So of course, in terms of numbers, is a smarter strategy. And second, because you're not going to have the time to focus on all the channels. It's just not possible. Like you're going to realize very soon, like the moment you go to market, the moment you want to put your products in front of people, you're not going to be able to keep up with all the channels. So you really need to pick one main channels, become great at it, and then once you did that, you can of course scale and test with other channels. Again, at the BD School, what we did at the very beginning was to focus on LinkedIn. Was really the first place where we were active all the time. Why is that? Again, because, well, it's very easy to find business development professionals on LinkedIn. It's literally like business development manager, and then you find lists of thousands of people that do business development. So I said, okay, great, we need to nail this one. Of course, we had an account, for example, on Instagram or on Facebook when people were on Facebook. So we had accounts also there, but what we were doing was just duplicating the same that we had on LinkedIn. We wouldn't like put extra effort into, creating a strategy into that. We wanted to be there because, again, when people look for you, they're going to look for you everywhere. They don't look for you only where you want to be found, right? They're going to look on Instagram and maybe they're going to look on Facebook. So you want to be there, but you need to be smart with that. So focus on one channel at the beginning, become great at it. And then once it works, then you can focus on other channels. Now, in terms of strategy, so how do we grow our business, right? Because, well, we mentioned our clients. How do we find our clients? But I mean, running ads, for example, is just one way. Being on LinkedIn or sending messages to people on LinkedIn is just one way, right? But what about, email marketing? Why aren't you collecting emails of people on your website? That's great, because you can keep talking to them, you can nurture them until the end of the day, until you find the formula to convert them, right? So why not? And why not entering into partnerships? So as mentioned at the beginning, Darren, Marie, and I met at a networking event, right? And literally, like, we clicked immediately. We found a lot of things in common. Darren came as a guest at our podcast. I talked to Maria a few times. So said, let's do something together. And we struck a partnership. And the benefit of this partnership is also for you guys, but we're going to tell you at the at the end, right? So when we think about our business development strategy, we need to take into account different ways to grow our business, right? So how do we do that? Because, again, like we said already before, we can do everything at once. So we're only few people in the team. So how do we decide which approach we should take? Like, should we go into a new market already? I don't know, like before, Paul, Pablo, I think was you mentioning like whether the Netherlands is the right market or not. Indeed, how do you decide that, right? So how can you take this sort of like life-changing decisions for your business? Now, there are a few things that you need to take into account. The first element is the market size. The market size is really going to set, the pace at which you can go. Because let's say if you work in a market, so in our case, let's say the BD School, so we have like thousands and thousands and thousands of business development professionals only on LinkedIn. Like there are millions of them like that speak English, so we have like an immense potential to keep contacting like people and potentially never speak with the same person twice in maybe 6 months or 1 year, right? So we have really huge potential there, which means when we thought about our strategy, how do we get these people on board? First thing we did was focusing on written content, right? So we created a blog. Why? Because having a blog is like allows you to be always present when people are looking for information, and it's a really long-term strategy strategy, because whatever you post today is going to rank maybe in 6 months, 1 year, but once it ranks, it keeps bringing new people. In our case, for example, so we went from 450 people in February 2019 when we launched. Now we have more than 10,000 people on the website every month. So that's, that was the first thing we did, is like, okay, there are all these people. How can we talk to all these people efficiently if we post content? On the other hand, if we would work with the government only or with universities, I'm going to share a bit more later about that, but universities are an important stakeholder with that for us, right? Because they're institutions, they can give us a lot of trust and so on. But let's say we created the platform only for universities. I mean, obviously we couldn't use the same approach as we use for the millions of business developers, because there are like, I think 700 universities in the entire world, and I think maybe around 20, 25 in the Netherlands. I'm not, don't remember the numbers now, but if we would target only those universities, our approach would be completely different. We couldn't just, go blast messages on LinkedIn. We would need to find the right person, talk to them, build the relationship, meet them multiple times, and really, try to understand what are their needs and so on. So in that case, our strategy will be like more relationship based, maybe using more networking, conferences, and this kind of stuff, right? So the size of your market is going to influence highly the type of activities you're going to do to get clients. And that's the first thing. The other one then is cultural differences, right? So we live in Europe, and I'm Italian, there are Dutch people, there are people from India. So it's really like only here, Cyprus, we mentioned before, like there is such a microcosmos, and we're just like a cozy group of people, right? But cultural differences really do matter in business, because really you cannot approach, especially in Europe, which we're so different, very similar for many things, but so different for so many other things. You cannot use the same approach everywhere. Let's talk, for example, about Germany. I know that some of you, Darren, you live at the border, but some of you do business in Germany as well. When I started my career in startups, I was working for this company, which was a student housing platform. And before, so we didn't have all this thought process behind that, it was like almost a student run organization. So it was like, let's try things. So one thing we tried was to, back then our business model was to partner up with universities, and then the universities would promote our business to their students, but the universities would pay. So what we did, like back then, we blasted this like thousands of emails to all the German universities, but like super spammy. It was like long, like it was terrible, really pushy, like really Dutch, I would say. It was really direct, super Dutch. And you probably know sometimes Dutch people are perceived as rude. I do not feel that. I love the directness, but it can be perceived like that, So what happened was that one guy, which was really done with us, like he really hated us, like he couldn't stand us. He sent an email to all the German universities, like all of them, saying, do not do business with this company. They're the worst, like they're annoying, they're pushy, do not do business with them. So basically, with one email, this guy like destroyed the entire market for us, right? Why? Because we didn't take into account that, maybe in Germany, they're very formal, they're very, distant. So they don't want you to, just go there and like basically revolutionize everything they do. They're very traditional as a culture. So you need to be very sensitive of these differences, because otherwise you're going to burn your business with like literally with one email. So take that into account. In my case, as an Italian, like in Italy, we love like being together and, having this family feeling. So every time I talk to Italian businesses, literally we talk about business maybe the last 5 minutes, if we do that. So it's really like, and so if you want to enter in business in Italy, you really need to develop this, more social way to do things. Then the other thing you need to take into account when you're coming up with your business development strategy is barriers to entry. Are there certain things, like certain rules, regulations that could prevent you from entering the market? Which doesn't mean, that you cannot enter. Most likely you can, but you need to take that into account in your strategy, right? Because if, for example, you really need to have a certificate to operate in that country, you cannot just go and do your business. You need to get that certificate and then you can operate in that. So this also contributes to, okay, what type of strategy do we use? And then, of course, we cannot forget customer preferences. Like, what do they like? Are they so, and what demographic do you have, right? So if you're working with super young generations, you want to be on TikTok. Like, you want to be there. It's good, it's great, it works, everybody's on there. You want to use influencers in your strategy because younger generations, they love, like, when people are talking about products, they trust them, they are their idols, you know. Like, for us when we were kids, maybe it was like Beverly Hills 90 to 10, like something like that, you know, they were our idols. But nowadays there's like people like Kaby Lame or this kind of stuff, you know, that you know, have such a power, you know, to influence the consumer behaviors, right? On the other hand, if you're talking to, you know, someone that works at Deloitte, a partner at Deloitte, which is like 50 plus, you cannot be so bubbly, and so like you need to tone it down, right? You need to use emails or maybe phones, like something a bit more quiet, more like, let's say, traditional, right? So customer preferences are totally going to influence the type of strategy you use. And then the last thing, like I called it hustling versus lazing. And this is more like about you, right? So what type of entrepreneur are you? So obviously there's some people which are really like very sociable and they love to be in the center of attention. They don't have any problem to pick up a phone call and, you know, do business. But there's some other people which are more, you know, like more reserved, maybe more introverted, which doesn't mean that, like, they're not great entrepreneurs. They are, but their approach is really different. So the hustler type is going to be the one that is always on social media or is like picking up the phone, doing thousands of stuff, while the lazy type can be someone that maybe just not comfortable being in front of people. So then the strategy could also take into account the personality of the founder and say, look, like, I can't get myself to do an event or something like that. So I cannot speak at an event. What can I do instead? Well, maybe you could just attend an event. You're just there, quiet, you don't talk, you know, and then at the bar, maybe you meet someone, you feel comfortable, and then you start building relations bit by bit, you know? Or you could even say, like, I don't want to talk to people. I want to have only content. I'm going to build a great funnel and people are going to come automatically. I don't want to talk to them, you know? So your approach, your personality can also be something you have to take into account. Now, it's not necessarily like sustainable on the long term. At some point, you have to, of course, move and adapt to your customers. But at the beginning, to get you comfortable with the idea of, you know, like putting your service in front of people, you can use this, you know, like basically take advantage of your weakness and create a strategy that allows you to be yourself, right? And then once you're more comfortable, then you can be more creative and crazy and you know, organize big parties and so on. Now, what are some examples? As mentioned at the beginning, of course, I didn't know what type of businesses you work at, so the split I made is B2B versus B2C, right? So that is easy, straightforward, and it can be helpful for all of you. So let's say we have a B2B company. And again, we can use the BD School as an example because, well, we do work on B2B and B2C with two different approaches and also slightly different products. Now, when we approach B2B, so there are a few things that we do in that case. So the first one, which we're really exploring more this year, is strategic partnerships. What are strategic partnerships? Is really collaborating with someone in your ecosystem that can enable you to be in front of your customers, right? And ideally, you have a win-win situation in which you both gain from this relation. Why it's great, especially in B2B, because if you partner up with the right companies or with the right organizations, you can gain a lot of trust and credibility in the eyes of your audience, right? So if, for example, I want to be in touch with the startups in the north of the Netherlands, I want to partner up with Zero to One because they're recognized as an institution there, and I want to be associated with someone that has credibility, right? In the same way, if I want to, enter a new market and I don't want to, invest too much energy, I can just have one specific company, which is the institution, for example, for professional training, and I want to become a trainer for them. And then in this way, get exposure for the BD school. So in B2B, partnerships can be really powerful. Again, you need to find the right ones because they're also like double-edged swords. Networking is like one of the absolute like best tactics you can use to get clients. Like as of today, our best clients came through networking, like really, and just people introducing to each other, and then us introducing other people, and then like there's this huge family of people that somehow like they're all related to each other, like this kind of stuff. But networking is great. So if you can select some events, small events like these ones, because here like events like these ones, they really allow you to be personal with people, and to really get to know each other on a very personal level, which is catalyst of business growth, right? So small events, attend big events, but in general, try to be with people, like-minded people, and then of course your audience. So if you have like industry conferences, you should be there. Really, also note that I put them in order of importance, also of how effective they are or they have been in our case, for example. So networking is great. Then we have referrals. We mentioned before that, of course, the key element of business growth and business success is trust. So you need to have this trust. What's the best way to generate trust is if you're not the one saying we're great, but if there are other people saying you're great, right? If your customers say, wow, the BD school is amazing, we achieved all this great stuff, wow, amazing. If your partners say that, or if a magazine starts talking about you, and they put a link to your website without you doing anything, even better, right? So referrals are great because they're basically free. You don't have to do anything unless you have a referral program with incentives and so on. But this can really catalyze your growth. Then cold outreach. Sorry, I do like cold outreach, and the reason why I like cold outreach is that I feel like it's like the tap of water, like I can regulate it. So if I want to, if in a month we have less leads from inbound, or in general we have less leads, I can contact more companies and say, hey, this is what we do, can you need it? Like, is it something interesting? So I really like the aspect of control that you have over cold outreach. Cold outreach, though, is a bit of a landmine because you need to do it in a very specific way. You need to personalize your outreach, or maybe not, so there is a lot of trial and error, but again, you're fully in control of that. And then of course, content, especially content that helps the company, to say, okay, to validate the need for your service. So the type of content for B2B should be more like case studies, explaining how you help the company and so on. We're not super strong in that. We're creating our case studies now, so maybe that's why I put it last. But it's a great way, of course, to generate trust and make sure that companies will want to work with you. On the other side, B2C, content that really works, like content and SEO, so people that just find us online, is our best channel to date, period, like for everything. Like, is amazing. It takes a long time and a lot of effort, of course, like you always need to come up with new ideas and so on. But once you crack the formula and you can really like gently accompany your customers from the moment in which they have they feel the pain to the moment in which they buy from you, that you really want, because that's something that is going to stay there for the future. Of course, social media, I didn't put it in B2B, not because it's not important, it's still important, but really what makes a difference in B2B is not like how many posts you post on LinkedIn, right? That is more like, okay, these people are here, I like what they say, but this is not what's going to make the difference. On the other hand, for B2C, you can really leverage it to, understand, the emotions your customers are going through and really connect on an emotional level. Then you have email marketing, super important. A while back, like a group of students I was working with told me that they didn't want to collect emails because email marketing doesn't work. If you heard that, just, unrecord it because it's not true. It works. It's amazing. Like I say, like the email is like the golden egg of business. You know, the moment you have the email address of someone, you're done, because then you can do everything with that email, right? You can contact them as many times as you want until they unsubscribe, but we don't want that. Hopefully we provide value to them. Then influencer marketing, we mentioned that before here, really because it really helps people trust your brand if an influencer is talking about you. And then word of mouth, again, which is similar to the referral we mentioned before, but it's more like, it's very organic way to grow the business, because like, oh yeah, I learned this on this page. Yeah, go to check it. I think you're gonna like it. You know, they have good content. Now, of course, and this is going to be, I think, the last slide. So super on time, I would say. That's good. I'm very happy about that, because we lost the first 10 minutes. So best practices, all these strategies are going to work if these things are true. If you know really well the pain points, so the problems that you help your audience to solve, like you really need to understand how this problem affects them. And I'm not talking only about, you know, like, okay, someone got their bike stolen. Okay, it's annoying, but what does it mean for that person to get their bike stolen? Maybe that month they didn't have money, you know, to buy a new bike, so they're stressed because now they cannot buy a new bike, they cannot go anywhere, they're lost, and that's really stressful, you know. So what's the real emotion that this causes? They're distressed, you know. If, like, I don't know, I'm a business and I want to generate more leads and I don't know how to do that, what's causing me is I cannot sleep at night. You know, the famous, like, what keeps you up at night? Yeah, this, I cannot find clients. You know, like, why? Because if I cannot find clients, I don't have money. If I don't have money, I have to close my business and potentially fire people. That's very stressful. That's scary as a situation to be in, right? So when we think about pain point, you really need to go one level deeper and think about the emotions that are behind that, and really, what does that mean for the person if they don't use something like your service or product. Then again, all these strategies of before are valuable if you are a valuable asset to people, if you're a resource to people, if you have the right network, if you can lend a hand whenever it's needed, if you provide good content, if you're always there when people need you, if you're timely, and so on, then people are going to trust you, and then they're going to give you money. Again, remember that money is just, you know, an exchange of trust. Like, people give you money if they trust you, because they trust you can help them. Then put the customer first. Again, like, I think nowadays it's like everyone says, like, yeah, you need to put the customer first, but really, like, that should be your first priority. Whatever you do, you really need to be like less selfish and really just put the interest of the customer first, because when you do that, then customers tend to come on their own. Then in that case, they do come on their own. And then the last best practices is to always ask questions. Really learn the art of asking questions in written form, in spoken form, and so on. Because from the moment you start asking questions to people, you're going to gather a lot of information that is going to help you refine your strategy and then be able to attract the right customers. And of course, don't assume anything. Like, at the beginning, I started by saying, I'm going to assume that you did all these things because I think we're all great entrepreneurs. I do not know, right? I don't know. That's why I asked you to put all this stuff in the comments so we can give you some resources. But the moment you start asking questions, that's really where you win, because you don't have to guess anymore. So people are going to tell you what you need, and then you just have to build what people need. So last exercise, if you want to train a little bit and just like see like how it would be in practice to contact some customers. Again, I said that cold outreach is I love to do that. If you want, send me a connection request, adding a note, so you can click on more, I think, add the note, and then send me your pitch for your business. And then for all of you that are going to do that, I'm gonna give you some feedback on the message. So if you're already approaching customers, I can give you some tips on how you can improve that. That is also the last slide, and now we have Q&As. So 6 minutes ahead, sorry.
Yeah, so we have like 4 or 5 minutes left, I think.
Yes, I think so. Or
all right,
a bit more. I don't have anywhere to go later, so it's up to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So but I was thinking we could take a few minutes if there are any questions.
Yeah.
I have a question as well. I'll get to that. And then if anyone wants to stay in chat, of course, they're free to do so, but then we can wrap up the formal part of it.
Cool.
Oh, I heard someone. Did someone have a question? Oh no, did I know? What's an important difference to be aware of when trying to establish a B2B and B2C nonprofit organization? That's an interesting question.
Andrea, what do you mean? So can you maybe give
No, this
some
is a
more
question I got from the chat from Andrea.
Yeah.
So right now I'm working on like a project that we're trying to encourage volunteering in Cyprus by building like a platform. So we're gonna do both B2B and B2C. So I was wondering if the same strategies can be used for this purpose.
Yes, so one thing that I didn't mention before, by the way, but you give me a great chance to do that. So the split between B2B and B2C, of course, is very convenient because there are some things that work better with one or the other. However, if you really want to be innovative, what you can do is you can apply some of the principles of B2B to B2C and vice versa, right? So you can kind of cross, like create some sort of hybrids of these strategies. I think, Andrea, in your case, like really what's important is that the value propositions are clear for B2B and B2C. So for example, if let's say you have a website, on the website, there needs to be a clear split between what is for who, right? So ideally you can have one page like for companies, and then the other one, it could be for individuals, or it could be the general website, and then there is one space for companies. The main difference is really the value proposition. So when you talk to businesses, of course, like why should they care about that? Because they have maybe social responsibility policies in the company, and they want to make sure that their teams are more like socially active, because that's good. Maybe they get some sort of bonus for that, which is the case most of the times. So if you want to talk to B2B, you need to take this into account. So your value proposition needs to be adapted to them. And there needs to be this clear split, right? So for example, if you go on the BD school, for companies, we tell you, we help you make your team great, right? Whereas if you're an individual, we say, we help you grow your career, right? Which is not the same for like if I go to a company and say, hey, I help your business developers find new jobs because your company sucks, they're not gonna partner up with us. So really the main difference is the value proposition. So make sure that you get this right, and that there is a clear split. So when companies are gonna read their page, they understand that you can help them, and vice versa. But then in terms of strategies, like most of the things I mentioned before for B2B and B2C, they're still valid for nonprofit or not. I do think that nonprofits should use more of the for-profit strategies, because then they could grow more and then, you know, bring more impact. But then really the main split is really in the value proposition.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I had a question myself. So I saw that you're doing a short course on cold outreach, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting to me, because a lot of people I speak to don't have a lot of experience with doing cold outreach and find it very difficult. And I saw that you're doing like a short course. It's pretty like 4 hours or something. So that's manageable, you know, to improve your cold outreach. So I would like to give you the opportunity to tell a little bit about that.
Totally, and thank you so much. So yeah, indeed, in the first week of March, we're launching, we call it the Cold Outreach Bootcamp, which is going to be kicked off by a webinar next week. So if you want to know more, join the webinar next Thursday, 3 p.m. But you probably are going to receive some notifications. And yeah, the idea was really this one, because we have a community and people were asking a lot of questions about how to approach a cold outreach, how to get more replies. And most of the people complain about the fact that when they send emails out, then they don't really get any response. So the idea with the bootcamp is really to focus on tactics to get people to reply to your emails. So we're gonna start, like, it's gonna be 2 hours in week 1, 2 hours in week 2. So there is 1 week difference. In week 1, we're gonna talk about personality styles and you know, how you can leverage them in your outreach, how to understand, you know, what approach to use with whom. And then in the second part is going to be be all about creating emails, testing specific messages with your audience. We're going to do that together. We're going to create emails together and sequences as well. It's going to be more of a workshop type of bootcamp, with the idea, of course, of helping people increase their open rate and get more meetings, because that's pretty much what we want from these emails. So yeah, if you're interested, yeah, of course, just reach out to me later when you send me the message on LinkedIn, and I can tell you more. I can get you enrolled.
Cool. All right. We're out of time now. Thank you so much.
Yes, just one last thing, but maybe, and then Maria can later can let you know. So as I mentioned before, of course, we have a partnership with 0 to 1. So if you are members and if you're affiliated with the 0 to 1, you actually get 10% discount. Maybe Maria, you can later send this information to the members as well.
Darren?
Yeah.
I have a question for you if you're not in a hurry.
I'm not in a hurry. Go ahead.
So as a serial entrepreneur, are you working on related projects, and is it hard to switch from one another if they're not like in the same industry or something?
I enjoyed switching industries, to be honest. I do have a passion for technology because I'm fascinated by cool things and also by scalability of cool things. But for example, I've run a co-working space. I've set up an IT bootcamp. I've been in waste sorting technology. I've run an accelerator. So I've done a lot of different things. I think it's not, well, of course, there's a learning curve. You know, if you switch to a new sector, you're not an expert anymore, and that you might have been an expert or at least have some knowledge on in your industry. So there's a learning curve, but it also expands your knowledge. You become as a person as well, or when you look at your career, you become more valuable as well. So no, I think there's no issue. I mean, if you're in IT or you're in volunteering or whatever sector you're in, you're always dealing with people, and people always have emotions and ambitions and things they need and problems that need to be solved. It's just figuring out what the next problem is in the new industry.
Okay. Thank you.
Alrighty. Yeah, so I guess that's it for the formal part. If anyone wants to stay and chat, have a bit of fun, whatever, you're welcome. And I guess then, I don't know how this works with the whole recording thing. Do we have to stop it now?
Oh yeah, maybe I can.